Chapter 44-34. If there's nothing else, then don't stay in Shuiyun City any longer. Go back. After saying that, Bailey Yunyan didn't say anything else. She turned around and left immediately. Looking at Bailey Yunyan's departing figure, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. It seemed that this Miss Yunyan's personality wasn't just a little cold. Situ, Yishuan, you two stay in Tianyun residence first. I'll go over. Di Xiaofeng put away his previous joking expression, and a serious look appeared on his face. Have you changed your mind? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a faint smile. Di Xiaofeng shook his head. With Yunyan's personality, she wouldn't have come looking for me unless something had happened. Now that she's here, something must have happened over there. I'll go over and see if I can help. Di Beichen nodded slightly. Go quickly. You don't have to worry about us here. Seeing Di Xiaofeng's departing figure, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and smiled. Di Xiaofeng really knew Bailey Yunyan well. The other party had only said a few words, and he had already guessed it. This understanding and concern was enough to show his feelings. Beichen, Xiaofeng isn't here right now. Let's go buy some herbs. For the entire day, no matter what it was, Di Xiaofeng would pay for everything. No matter how much she and Di Beichen refused, it was useless, so they could only choose not to buy. Although Di Xiaofeng had always said that this life-saving grace must be repaid with a spring, and spending a little money was nothing, they treated Di Xiaofeng as a friend. They didn't want to take advantage of him like this. This time, they used a lot of herbs to recuperate from their injuries. In order to prevent any future situations, they had to be prepared first. Okay. The two of them asked the waiter, and came to the largest herb shop in Shuiyun City. They smoothly bought some of the herbs they needed. The shopkeeper was a man around 40 years old. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen buying a lot of herbs in one go, he immediately became interested in chatting. Could it be that the two of you are buying so many medicinal herbs to treat that Miss Bailey? Miss Bailey Hongzhuang? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Which Miss Bailey? Bailey Shi, Miss Shi. The shopkeeper said matter-of-factly, today, Miss Shi has already fainted. Basically, all the famous doctors in the city have gone over, but until now, there hasn't been any effect. The bounty is getting higher and higher. In the past, we couldn't tell what's so great about this Lady Shi. However, a few days ago, Lady Yunyan, who claimed to be her elder sister, came. Now, all the doctors and alchemists in the city are hoping to cure Miss Shi. This is a big business. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. Di Xiaofeng was right, something did happen to Miss Yunyan. May I know where Miss Shi lives? Bailey Hongzhuang inquired. The two of you also want to try your luck? The shopkeeper chuckled and pointed to the door. After you go out, head east. You'll see a very lively place at the entrance. That's Miss Shi's residence. Thank you, shopkeeper. After leaving the herb shop, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen headed east. This Miss Shi is Miss Yunyan's younger sister. No wonder Miss Yunyan came to find Xiaofeng today. She probably doesn't know what to do. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly understood. Looking at the situation, this Miss Shi's illness is very serious. Chapter 44-35. Speaking of which, this was also because Xiaofeng did not know that Bailey Hongzhuang was an expert in medicine. Otherwise, he would have brought them over to have a look. Back when she had saved Di Xiaofeng, although his injuries were very serious, he had already taken a pill. In addition to his strong healing abilities, Bailey Hongzhuang had only bandaged his wounds and applied some medicine. Therefore, Di Xiaofeng did not know that she was a doctor. According to the shopkeeper, this Miss Bailey she is from Water Cloud City and Miss Yunyan is not. However, both of them have the surname Bailey. This is really strange, isn't it? Xiao Hei's eyes flashed with confusion. She had thought that these two Miss Bailey were from the same family. She did not expect that they were not. However, the two of them knew each other. She really could not understand. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. You'll understand once you get there. Speaking of the Bailey family, her feelings were a little complicated. She did not know if the Bailey family of the past still existed. However, even if she had met the two Miss Bailey, she was still very happy. As the two of them walked forward, a courtyard in front of them was suddenly surrounded by many people. It looked very lively. I think this must be the place that the shopkeeper was talking about. It is indeed very lively. There were about 10 people standing outside the courtyard and chatting with each other. Bailey Hongzhuang also smelled a familiar medicinal scent. This Miss She is really strange. When I took her pulse, there was clearly nothing wrong with her. Why did she faint? This old man's pulse was exactly as you said. However, Miss She looked as if she had lost her soul. I only thought that she might have lost her mind. Sigh, I really don't understand. This illness is really too strange. The group of doctors stood outside the room with their heads hung low. There was only one word written on their faces: I don't understand. Listening to everyone's discussion, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood the situation a little better. Wife, the situation that they're talking about is very strange. Do you know what's going on? Di Beichen's eyes darkened and his handsome eyebrows furrowed slightly. Although he was not a doctor, the situation described by the crowd was too strange. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I can only judge after taking his pulse. According to what they said, there are actually many possibilities. I can't tell until I see it for myself. It seems that my wife has encountered a similar situation before. I have indeed come into contact with many strange patients. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Back then, in order to improve her medical skills, her old man had brought in all kinds of patients. It was because of this that she had seen so many diseases at such a young age. After they walked into the courtyard, Di Xiaofeng also noticed their appearance, and a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. How did you know I was here? Bailey Yunyan, who had just walked out of the room, also noticed Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Her cold face revealed a trace of stiffness as she slowly walked over. We were buying herbs earlier and happened to hear the shopkeeper talk about your situation here, so we thought of coming over to take a look. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I see. Di Xiaofeng understood and sighed helplessly. There's no other way. We have already invited all the doctors in the city, but there's no solution. Chapter 44-36. Bailey Yunyan walked to Di Xiaofeng's side and said, My sister has fallen into a coma. The doctors have prepared the medicine and are brewing it now. Can I go in and take a look? Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Di Beichen explained, Yi Xian is also a doctor and her medical skills are not bad. You're a doctor? Di Xiaofeng's eyes widened with astonishment. This was clearly out of his expectations. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, her beautiful face rippling with a faint smile. If I knew you were in such a situation, I would have come long ago. Then quickly go in and take a look, Di Xiaofeng said. Bailey Yunyan didn't say anything and only nodded. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Yunyan followed Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan into the room and saw a girl in her early 20s sleeping on the bed. Her face was pale and she looked weak and pitiful. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Bailey Shi and then at Bailey Yunyan. Although they both had the surname Bailey, they didn't look alike. After taking Bailey Shi's pulse, Bailey Hongzhuang's brows gradually furrowed. Di Beichen and the others noticed her expression and their hearts sank. It seemed that Bailey Shi's situation was really strange. After taking her pulse, Bailey Hongzhuang put Bailey Shi's hand back under the blanket and turned around. Bailey Hongzhuang's black phoenix eyes were filled with doubt as she frowned. Did Miss Shi suffer some kind of shock? Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan glanced at each other. Both of them were astonished. How do you know? So far, although many doctors had come to check her pulse, no one had said this. Bailey Yunyan and Di Xiaofeng had also not said this. Bailey Hongzhuang's words after checking her pulse really made them surprised. Her pulse is stable and there's no big problem. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to fall into a coma in such a situation. However, I noticed that she was restless and isolated. This should be a psychological problem. She does have a mental illness. Only then did Bailey Yunyan speak. She looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a complicated gaze. She originally thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills would not be that good at such a young age. However, she was able to diagnose something that so many doctors had failed to do. It was really surprising. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Mental illness needs to be cured by mental medicine. She just doesn't want to face it. Then what should we do? Bailey Yunyan looked anxious. Do you have a way to wake her up? There is a way, but if we can't solve her problem, it's useless even if she wakes up now. What's wrong with Miss Shi? Di Beichen asked. Hearing this, Bailey Yunyan sighed. Her expression was extremely complicated. Di Xiaofeng pondered for a moment and said to Bailey Yunyan, Yunyan, Yishuan and Situ are not outsiders. Since they want to help treat Miss Shi, there's no harm in telling them. I believe they won't say anything. Seeing Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan's hesitation, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed in her heart. It seemed that the reason was very complicated. Don't worry, we won't say anything. Chapter 44-37. Actually, she is my cousin. We've always had a good relationship. She went out to train and when she came back, I felt that something was wrong with her. When I asked her what had happened, she refused to tell me. Until one day, everything was exposed. Bailey Yunyan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen with a complicated expression, as if she found it difficult to speak. It turns out that when she went out, she fell in love with a man. The two of them had already pledged themselves to each other. After she came back, she waited for that man to come and ask for her hand in marriage, but he never came. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore and went to the man's residence. When she came back, she looked heartbroken. Because this matter damaged the reputation of the family, she was punished by the family and left. She didn't know where to go, so she came to Watercloud City. I came here specifically to see if she had settled down well in Watercloud City, but I didn't expect things to turn out like this. Bailey Yunyan sighed. She used to be a very lively girl, but I didn't expect her to become like this. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Although Bailey Yunyan's words were very vague, they both understood that Bailey she was most likely pregnant. She thought that her lover would come and marry her, but she didn't expect him to be a heartless man. Not only was she infatuated with the wrong man, but she was also banished by the family. Most importantly, as a woman, this blow was too great. No wonder she fell into such a situation. When I checked her pulse just now, I also found that her body was very weak. Her qi and blood were in disarray. All of these things accumulated together and attacked her heart. That's why she's in this situation. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was heavy. After understanding the general situation, she also understood how serious the blow Bailey she had suffered was. This kind of thing was indeed not something an ordinary person could bear. In the end, it was all because of that heartless man. If he hadn't lied to Bailey Shi and then acted irresponsibly, she wouldn't have fallen into the mire of this tragedy. Then what should we do now? Bailey Yunyan looked anxious. She also knew that this was a difficult matter. She had tried to persuade Bailey Shi many times, but it didn't seem to work. Now that Bailey Shi had become like this, if she were to remain unconscious and lose her life, she would really. I'll let her wake up first, but she's prone to depression during this period of time. You guys should accompany her more. Although the wrong person caused her irreparable damage, people should always look forward. Don't give up your life because of this. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed faintly. This situation couldn't help but make her think of her grandmother. Back then, his grandmother had also left with such feelings. However, his grandmother was strong enough to persevere under such circumstances. Fortunately, her grandfather wasn't such a heartless man. He was just a traitor. Now they were finally together. Miss, she might not be so lucky, but it wouldn't be worth it if she had to pay with her life. Yi Xian, do you have the confidence to wake Lady Shi up? Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but ask. Many doctors had come to see Bailey Shi before, but they couldn't come up with a treatment method after discussing for a long time. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had a casual look as if this wasn't a problem at all. Chapter 4438. Di Beichen's handsome face was full of confidence and certainty. He knew very well how outstanding his wife's medical skills were. Even in the upper realm, her medical skills were still outstanding. Seeing Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang so confident, Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but sigh in surprise. He didn't expect that the savior he met this time was actually a very powerful doctor. No wonder my injuries healed so quickly. I thought it was because my physique was good. It turns out it's because of Yixuan. Di Xiaofeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. He knew very well how serious his injuries were before, and the speed of recovery was obviously much faster than he thought. Although he felt that it was a bit strange, he could only attribute it to his physique. He didn't expect that the real reason was here, but he had always overlooked it. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Actually, your physique is really good. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to recover so quickly. No matter what, Yixuan, I have to thank you again. If you didn't treat my injuries, I wouldn't have recovered so quickly. Bailey Yunyan couldn't help but frown after hearing this. She immediately looked at Di Xiaofeng and asked, You're injured? When did you get injured? Di Xiaofeng smiled faintly and waved his hand. It's nothing, don't worry about it. However, Bailey Yunyan didn't believe it. If it was just a simple injury with Di Xiaofeng's body, there wouldn't be any problem at all. From their conversation, she could tell that the injury must be very serious. You disappeared a few days ago. Was it because you were injured? After connecting the dots, Bailey Yunyan immediately understood what was going on. Previously, when Di Xiaofeng mysteriously disappeared for a few days, she only thought that Di Xiaofeng's temperament couldn't hold on and left. She didn't expect that something like this had happened, and she didn't know anything about it. Seeing the worry in Bailey Yunyan's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and tactfully said, We'll go out first to prepare the medicine. You guys take your time to chat. With that, the two of them walked out of the house and closed the door behind them. Bailey Yunyan had always misunderstood Di Xiaofeng before, so it was good to take this opportunity to resolve the misunderstanding. Beichen, I'm afraid we have to go to the medicine shop. There are some herbs that I don't have. Bailey Hongzhuang helplessly shrugged. Although she had a lot of herbs here, she didn't have the medicine to cure this disease. Xiaofeng and Miss Yunyan also have things to talk about. Xiaofeng and Miss Yunyan also have something to talk about. They have things to talk about it. Of Xiaofeng. Found D was. Of C. T. We went to the medicine shop to buy some herbs. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. With Miss Shi's current condition, it's better for her to wake up early. If she's unconscious for too long and falls into a deep sleep, it'll be more difficult for her to wake up. What's more, her body is very weak now and she needs to be nursed back to health. Chapter 4439. Xiaofeng, you're being too polite. Di Beichen said. Yi Xian and I happen to have nothing to do, so we're just buying some herbs. Since we're friends, there's no need to be so polite. Hearing the faint dissatisfaction in Di Beichen's words, the smile on Di Xiaofeng's face became more and more warm. Haha, you two are my friends. I was wrong this time, so I shouldn't be polite to you. You have to treat me the same in the future. Of course. Bailey Yunyan's eyes lit up when she heard the word friend. Her gaze quietly fell on Bailey Hongzhuang, but she found that Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm, as if she didn't care about this matter at all. She immediately understood that she had misunderstood the relationship between Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Hongzhuang. It turned out that the two of them were just friends. Thinking of this, The corner of Bailey Yunyan's lips unconsciously revealed a faint smile. Noticing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen both looked at Di Xiaofeng with deep meaning. It seemed that this misunderstanding was not only resolved, but there was also some progress. Di Xiaofeng looked at Bailey Yunyan's smile and couldn't help but be stunned. The iceberg beauty's smile was like the sun in March, melting the ice and snow. It was so beautiful that it made people unable to open their eyes. Bailey Yunyan saw that there was suddenly no sound and couldn't help but raise her head, only to find that 3 pairs of eyes were looking at her. Especially after noticing Di Xiaofeng's affectionate gaze, her face quietly dyed with a faint blush. "Missy Xian, thank you very much." Bailey Yunyan hurriedly looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, intending to change the topic. However, the scene just now had been clearly seen by them, so this kind of cover-up was obviously useless. "Miss Yunyan is too polite." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, her dark eyes sharp and bright. "This is what I should do. Wait here for a moment, I'll go brew the medicine," Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Bailey Yunyan hurriedly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and said, "Miss Xian, let me help you." Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at her and nodded slightly. "Okay." The two of them walked into the kitchen at the back. Bailey Hongzhuang saw the medicine furnace as soon as she entered and immediately began to process the herbs. Bailey Yunyan looked at the busy Bailey Hongzhuang, her red lips slightly opened, hesitant, as if she didn't know whether to speak or not. Although her back was facing Bailey Yunyan, Bailey Hongzhuang could still guess her expression. "Miss Yunyan, if you have anything to ask, just ask." Hearing this, Bailey Yunyan was slightly startled. She didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang had already guessed that she had something to ask. "You deliberately followed me in, so you must want to talk to me." Seeing that the other party was so direct, Bailey Yunyan no longer hesitated and immediately asked, "Miss Xian, did you meet because you saved Xiaofeng?" "That's right." "Where did he get injured?" Bailey Hongzhuang turned around, her bright eyes rippling with a faint smile. "This kind of question, why don't you ask Xiaofeng directly?" Bailey Yunyan bit her lip. "I just asked him, but he didn't want to say." Chapter 44:40. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Bailey Yunyan's expression changed slightly. Her clear and bright eyes rippled with a touch of light, but more than that, there was worry and guilt. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished processing the herbs, she put them into the medicine furnace and lit the fire. Seeing Bailey Yunyan fall into silence, she said, "Miss Yunyan, although you and I have only just met and aren't familiar with each other, I still want to say that it's easy to find a priceless treasure, but hard to find a lover. If you meet someone you like and don't want to express yourself because of the situation, once you miss it, it'll be too late for regret." Hearing this, Bailey Yunyan couldn't help but be startled. She looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. She didn't expect her to say this to her. "You? Then what about you?" "Me?" Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. "What about me? Don't you like Xiaofeng?" Bailey Yunyan couldn't help but ask. She didn't doubt Di Xiaofeng's charm at all. In fact, ever since she met Di Xiaofeng, she knew very well how many girls liked him. Long before she met him, she had already heard of Di Xiaofeng's name. He was the dream lover of many young girls, the object of their adoration. In fact, it was very difficult for girls to not like such a man. Her friends were also very envious of her for being liked by Di Xiaofeng, but because he was too outstanding, she didn't dare to believe it. Everything was too illusory. Pfft. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh out loud. "You think I like Xiaofeng? Isn't that the case?" Bailey Yunyan asked doubtfully. "Situ is my husband. Fortunately, he's not here, otherwise it would be really interesting." Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that Bailey Yunyan's misunderstanding was really deep. You're married?" Bailey Yunyan was really dumbfounded at this moment. But after she reacted, she couldn't help but feel happy. Turned out that she was thinking too much. "Yes." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "Although Xiaofeng is good, I only have Situ in my heart. Sorry, I misunderstood. Bailey Hongzhuang blinked. Her bright eyes were filled with teasing and teasing. I understand. You're too concerned. Faced with such an appearance, Bailey Yunyan felt somewhat uncomfortable. However, she also knew that she could not hide her thoughts from Bailey Hongzhuang. Thus, she decided not to hide it anymore. When Bailey Hongzhuang finished brewing the medicine and went out with Bailey Yunyan, Di Beichen and Di Xiaofeng were chatting. Seeing the two of them come out, they also went up to greet them. Feed this medicine to Miss Shi should wake up tomorrow. Thank you. Di Xiaofeng took the medicine and glanced at Bailey Yunyan. The two of them walked into the room together. After dealing with it, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen returned to Tianyun residence and promised to come back the next day to check on Bailey Shi's situation. The lower realms. When Ziren, Shangguan Yingying, Mo Yunjue, and Ao Lingxiao were walking in the training ground. After waiting for so long, I've finally broken through to the star boundary. We can also go to the upper realms to meet up with Hongzhuang and the others. Shangguan Yingying's face lit up with excitement. Her lips curled into a brilliant smile. She was in a very good mood and even her steps were lighter. Chapter 44-41. They should already be in the D family. They must be living a comfortable life. Ao Lingxiao's eyes flashed with a bright light, but deep in his eyes there was some worry. At first, although he believed that Di Beichen was a member of the D family, but after all this was confirmed, his heart began to worry about personal gains and losses. From the beginning to the end, he actually didn't help Di Beichen and the others much, but he hoped that Di Beichen could help him return to the D family. Thinking back to when Di Beichen and Mo Wuji agreed to help him, the condition was that he would lead everyone to the D family. Now, it seemed that he didn't need to lead the way anymore, so naturally, he didn't fulfill the previous condition. Therefore, even if Di Beichen chose to reject him, he couldn't do anything about it. When he thought of the situation in his family, the anger in his heart burned wildly. He couldn't bear this infamy for the rest of his life. He couldn't let his father die in such a dubious way. He had to go back and wash away all of this. Now, Di Beichen was his only hope, so he had to beg Di Beichen, hoping that he would agree to help him. Mo Yunjue remained silent. His deep eyes were also filled with extraordinary splendor. Actually, he had already broken through to the astral chi realm long ago. It was only because he was waiting for Ziren and the others that he stayed until now. He regretted that he couldn't protect Bailey Hongzhuang at that time. During this period of time, the worry in his heart had never disappeared. He only hoped that he could ensure the safety of Bailey Hongzhuang when he went to the upper realm. Ziren, since you already know that the Golden Flame auction house is under the D family, why don't you go directly to the D family? Ao Lingxiao looked at Ziren with suspicion. Logically speaking, it was undoubtedly the most convenient way for them to go to the upper realm through the Golden Flame auction house. This is indeed the best way, but we don't know the situation of Beichen in the D family. If we take the risk and go to the upper realm through the Golden Flame auction house, it might bring trouble to Beichen. Anyway, you know where the D family is. At most, we'll just have to spend a little more time. Ziren's eyes darkened. He had been worried about this ever since he found out about Di Beichen's identity. Such a huge family was much more powerful than they had expected. Di Yujue indeed appeared to be very concerned about Di Beichen. However, with such a large family, their interests were tangled and complicated. As outsiders, they simply couldn't understand the situation. Di Beichen had never returned to the D family for so many years. Naturally, he didn't have any foundation in the D family. Not only that, there was no need to think to know that during these years when Beichen wasn't around, there would definitely be a replacement for him in the clan. Now that Beichen had returned, it would definitely affect the benefits of some people. Maybe, his current situation in the Supreme D clan was extremely difficult. As Beichen's friends, they wholeheartedly wanted to help Beichen solve some problems. If they brought trouble to him, that wasn't the result they wanted. Therefore, they would rather be a little more troublesome than have the possibility of dragging Beichen down. Hearing Xiren's words, Ao Lingxiao immediately understood what he meant. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This Xiren's relationship with Di Beichen was indeed extremely good. He actually even considered such a problem for him. If it was an ordinary friend, they definitely wouldn't be so meticulous. Chapter 44-42. Lingxiao, you're from the upper realm. Why don't you tell us what the upper realm is like? Is it very different from the lower realm? Shangguan Yingying turned to look at Ao Lingxiao. Among the four of them, only Ao Lingxiao knew about the upper realm. Moreover, he had been in the upper realm since he was young. When Xiren and Mo Yunjue also looked at Ao Lingxiao, they also wanted to know more about the upper realm. Ao Lingxiao chuckled when he saw everyone's curious expressions. Actually, there's not much difference between the upper realm and the lower realm. The biggest difference is that the cultivators are generally very powerful. The upper realm and the lower realm are separated by power. Other than that, there's not much difference. There should be more treasures in the upper realm than in the lower realm, right? Ao Lingxiao nodded. Indeed. Many of the treasures in the lower realm actually end up in the upper realm. With our current strength, we have to keep a low profile when we go to the upper realm. Otherwise, we'll easily attract disaster. Not only that, but when we go to the upper realm, our talents will awaken. Our cultivation methods will also be different from before. Talents awaken. Mo Yunjue raised his eyebrows. His handsome eyes were filled with doubt and inquiry. Actually, every cultivator has their own talent. Those below the Starlight Realm don't know. Those above the Starlight Realm can awaken their talents. As Ao Lingxiao walked, he explained the process and meaning of talent awakening to Xiren and the others. After listening to everything, the three of them couldn't help but sigh. Turned out that after reaching this level, the cultivation methods would be different. It was really surprising. No wonder the cultivators in the upper realm are so powerful. Not only do they have more cultivation resources than us, but their cultivation methods are also different. Shangguan Yingying shrugged. Beichen and Hong Zhuang's talents are so powerful. I'm afraid they've already left us in the dust. We have to hurry and catch up with them. With their current strength, it was no longer as dangerous to walk in the training ground as before. It could be said that they were familiar with the way to the entrance of the upper realm. Along the way, they also met many cultivators, but everyone was here to gain experience. Seeing the four of them going deeper in without stopping, everyone was obviously curious. However, a voice suddenly rang out from behind them as they hurried on their way. Junior brother, junior sister, wait for me. Hearing that, the four couldn't help but stop and look back. When they saw that it was Wan Yanling, they were a bit surprised. Eldest senior brother, why are you here? Ao Lingxiao looked at Wan Yanling in astonishment. If Wan Yanling was leading a group of people here, they wouldn't find it strange. However, it was strange that Wan Yanling was alone. When Xiren and the other two were also sizing him up. After the incident at the remains, they had a pretty good impression of Wan Yanling. Although an accident happened later on, none of them had expected it to happen. Are you going to head to the upper realm? Wan Yanling asked with a bright smile. That's right. Ao Lingxiao nodded. How did eldest senior brother know? Chapter 44-43. When Xiren and the others came to an understanding when they heard this, but they still couldn't help but be surprised in their hearts. Senior brother Wanyan, if we didn't happen to be going today, would you go to the upper realm alone? Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but ask. According to Ao Lingxiao, the cultivators in the upper realm were extremely powerful. Even the four of them had to be careful. If Wan Yanling was going to go alone, the risk would be even more shocking. Looking at everyone's shocked expressions, Wan Yanling smiled faintly and said, Originally, I wasn't the only one who wanted to go. However, not everyone wants to go to a wider world. Sometimes, staying in this familiar place was also a very good way to live. However, my elder brother has already gone to the upper realm. Before he left, I promised him that I would go to the upper realm to find him. Now that he has stayed in the upper realm for a long time, I should go and meet him. Hearing Wan Yenling's words, everyone immediately understood. It seemed that the cultivator who had made an agreement with Wan Yenling had decided to stay in the lower realm. In fact, during the time they stayed on Penglai Island, they also discovered that some cultivators in the Penglai Palace knew about the existence of the upper realm. They just chose not to go. Everyone had different thoughts. Some people didn't want to see the wider world. After all, after so many years of hard work, it wasn't easy to achieve such achievements in the lower realms. Once they went to the upper realms, it would be tantamount to starting all over again. Many people no longer had the same fighting spirit, so staying in the lower realms wasn't necessarily a bad choice. Senior brother Wanyan's elder brother should be the previous senior brother of the Penglai Palace, Wanyan Han, right? When Ziren looked at Wan Yenling, they also knew about Wanyan Han's name. Even though Wanyan Han was no longer here when they came to the Penglai Palace, they could often hear Wanyan Han's name from the cultivators who came here. It was said that this senior brother was a person who valued friendship and loyalty. It was because of this that everyone had a deep impression of him. However, as Wanyan Han's younger brother, Wan Yenling was also not bad. Both of them had achieved results that ordinary practitioners simply could not achieve in the Penglai Palace. Senior brother, let's set off together then. It's our first time in the upper realm. We can take care of each other if we're together, Ziren said with a smile. Wan Yenling smiled and nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you. Senior brother, you're too courteous. With your cultivation, I'm afraid you'll have to take care of us. Everyone chuckled as they walked forward. Although everything in the upper realm was unknown to them, they were still filled with hope. Early the next morning, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen headed to Miss Shi's residence. As soon as the two walked in, Di Xiaofeng noticed them and smiled brightly. Situ, Yixuan, you're here. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a smile. They noticed that the doctors outside had already left, and the notice on the door had been taken down at some point. Yixuan, I'm really convinced by your medical skills now. Chapter 44-44. With you here, we don't need to look for other doctors. Your medical skills are much better than theirs. Di Xiaofeng's black eyes flashed with surprise and joy. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had made a solemn vow yesterday, because her performance was too relaxed, he couldn't help but feel a little worried. He didn't expect that when he was still resting this morning, Bailey Yunyan's surprised voice could be heard. Bailey, she had woken up. It was only at that moment that he truly understood that Lan Yixuan's medical skills weren't ordinary. This level of medical skills was definitely at the level of a master. Di Beichen chuckled. I already told you yesterday, but you didn't believe me. My wife's medical skills aren't just for show. When we were in the lower realm, countless people wanted to see my wife, but she didn't have the time. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichen's proud expression as he introduced her. Her lips curled into a bright smile. Her husband was getting better at praising her. Di Xiaofeng nodded. Yes. I firmly believe in this point now. So many doctors came and discussed the solution, but after so long, they still didn't have a clue. To be honest, Yunyan and I have been thinking of all the solutions we could think of because of this problem. We didn't expect to find a solution so easily. It seems that I really did obtain a fortuitous encounter when I went to the dark forest last time. The reason why he went to the dark forest was because he heard that there might be some special and precious herbs there that might be helpful for Bailey Shi's illness. But he didn't expect that not only did he not find any herbs, he was even ambushed and almost lost his life. He thought that he had gained nothing, but he didn't expect his savior to be such a skilled doctor. This was really a turn of events. Is Miss Yunyan taking care of Miss Shi inside? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Di Xiaofeng nodded. Although Miss Shi has woken up, her emotions aren't very stable. Yun Yan can only watch over her, afraid that she will do something stupid. Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. I'll go in and take a look. Di Xiaofeng was about to follow them in but was stopped by Bailey Hongzhuang. It's better to let me and Yun Yan deal with this kind of thing. You guys should obediently stay outside. Otherwise, you'll only provoke her more. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng was slightly stunned. After thinking about it carefully, he felt that what Bailey Hongzhuang said was indeed very reasonable. When he turned his head, he found that Di Beichen had been standing in the same place all this time. He had no intention of going in to take a look. Noticing Di Xiaofeng's expression, Di Beichen just spread out his hands. The expression on his face showed that he had already expected this situation. The faint smile between his brows looked like he was mocking Di Xiaofeng. Di Xiaofeng glared at him. This guy had already guessed it, but he didn't tell him, causing him to hit a wall. Knock knock. Bailey Hongzhuang stood outside the door and knocked. Inside the room. Bailey She looked outside the room. Her pale face was filled with worry and nervousness. Cousin, don't worry, it should be Miss Yixuan. Chapter 44-45. Seeing Bailey She like this, Bailey Yunyan couldn't help but hug her. She, I know you're in pain, but you can't give up on life because of this. You just misjudged him. It's him who betrayed you, it's his fault. Why do you have to pay with your life? Bailey Yunyan's eyes were burning with rage. That heartless man is nothing. He should be the one to suffer, not you. If you lose your life because of him, then it's not worth it. Miss Yixian is a good person. If she didn't find a way to wake you up yesterday, I really don't know what you would be like now. Let her in first, okay? Bailey Hongzhuang stood outside the room, vaguely able to hear the conversation inside. She understood Bailey She's complex emotions, so she wasn't in a hurry and just waited outside the door. She didn't need to think to know that Bailey She's emotions were definitely not calm. If she rashly went in and agitated her, then the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. After a while, Bailey Yunyan's voice sounded, "Please come in." Only then did Bailey Hongzhuang enter the room. Looking around, she saw Bailey She curled up on the bed, her face buried deep. Bailey Yunyan was sitting next to the bed, her pretty face filled with helplessness and pain. She exchanged a glance with Bailey Yunyan, then spoke, "Miss Shi, I am Lan Yixian." Bailey Shi, who had her head buried, only made a sound of acknowledgement. Her voice was low and soft, clearly not like she was speaking. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang took a stool and sat down beside the bed. "Miss Shi, I am a doctor, how about you take out your hand and let me take your pulse?" "Shi-er?" Bailey She slowly took out her hand, and Bailey Hongzhuang took the opportunity to take her pulse. "Miss Yixian, how is my sister's situation?" "It's about the same as what I said yesterday." Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Her body is weak, and she hasn't recovered from her previous losses, and now she's immersed in grief all day. If this continues... Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head, and Bailey Yunyan immediately understood. "Shi-er, pull yourself together, don't give up hope because of this." Bailey Yunyan spoke up. However, Bailey She only lowered her head and didn't say a word. Clearly her heart was already dead. "Shi Gunyang, in fact, you didn't do anything wrong. You just trusted the wrong person. It's a pity that you gave up your life because of this." Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, "I've also encountered a situation like yours." As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Bailey She raised her head and asked, "Is there anyone else who's been like this?" Seeing Bailey She's eyes suddenly light up, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Yunyan glanced at each other before continuing, "The world is big, and there are different things happening every moment. Naturally, this kind of thing can't only happen to you." What? Bailey Yunyan slowly walked out of the room. Di Xiaofeng and Di Beichen saw that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't come out with her, and they were a bit puzzled. "Yunyan, why did you come out by yourself?" Di Xiaofeng asked, puzzled. Bailey Yunyan smiled. "Miss Yixuan is truly a wonderful person. My words are not as effective as hers. Her comforting words are clearly much more effective than mine. I might as well come out and let them have a good chat. Chapter 44-46. It was obviously not a simple thing to let a stranger believe in you, but this situation was not so difficult when it came to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Yunyan thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was a stranger to Bailey Shi, but she didn't expect that with just a few words, Bailey Shi would believe her so much. In fact, it wasn't just Bailey Shi, even she had an inexplicable feeling of trust when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang. This was a woman with magical power. Hearing Bailey Yunyan's words, Di Xiaofeng nodded with a smile. Miss Yixian is indeed a good girl. He also had to admit that, in fact, whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichen, they both made him feel very comfortable at first glance and wanted to communicate with them. It seems that this heavy responsibility will be placed on Miss Yixian. Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows. After seeing Bailey Yunyan go to the kitchen, he put a hand on Di Beichen's shoulder and teased, "Sidu, your eyes are really good. You found such a treasure." "Many people praise me," Di Beichen replied. "You really don't know what modesty is." Di Xiaofeng was helpless. He thought that Di Beichen would at least be modest, but he didn't expect him to admit it so calmly. "You already know that this is the truth. If I pretend to be modest, wouldn't it be hypocritical?" Di Beichen spread his hands. His wife was impeccable. "You're good." Bailey Hongzhuang went in for a long time. Even though Bailey Yunyan had already prepared lunch, she still didn't dare to disturb them. It wasn't until a moment later that Bailey Hongzhuang came out. "Miss Yixian, how is my sister?" Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "Bring the food in for her to eat." "She's willing to eat?" Bailey Yunyan was surprised. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "She hasn't had a good meal recently. Let her have some porridge first. As for who that man is, since she doesn't want to say it, then don't ask. One day, she will be willing to say it herself." Hearing this, Bailey Yunyan wanted to say something, but hesitated. In the end, she nodded. Okay. She just wanted to know who that irresponsible, heartless man was. That way, she could think of a way to get justice for her little sister. Unfortunately, Bailey she wasn't willing to say anything, making her anxious to death. After Bailey Yunyan entered the room, Di Xiaofeng walked over and said, "Why don't you ask who that man is? If it wasn't for that man, Miss Shi wouldn't have fallen to such a state today. Actually, if I think about it carefully, someone who can catch Miss Shi's eye is definitely not from an ordinary family. Moreover, how could an ordinary man dare to let Miss Shi down? This was a great opportunity for him to climb up the social ladder. After eliminating this possibility, there weren't many possibilities left. She doesn't want to say it. On one hand, she feels embarrassed. On the other hand, she might still have a trace of hope for that man." Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was heavy. After talking with Bailey Shi, she felt that this girl was very pure. It was because she didn't know much about the world that she was deceived. She had almost given up everything for this relationship, and this result was really beyond her ability to bear. Chapter 44-47. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Xiaofeng had a look of disbelief. "I didn't hear wrong, right? That man already treated her like that and she still has a glimmer of hope? AI, you men might not be able to understand." Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. "We all think that man is despicable, and we know that he was lying to her from the beginning. However, that man is the only person she has ever liked. Think about it from her perspective. Lady, she isn't a bold person, yet she was able to do this for him. It can be seen how deep her feelings for him are." Di Xiaofeng and Di Beichen looked at each other and instantly understood. As expected, a woman could understand a woman's feelings the best. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang only went in once and Bailey she was willing to eat. In comparison, Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan's persuasion was a bit too extreme. No wonder it didn't have a good effect. Step by step, she won't be able to let go of her heart in a short period of time. However, as long as she doesn't have any thoughts of suicide, she will slowly walk out of it. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly. You're right. If we keep forcing her like this, it will only make her go into a dead end. Why don't we give her more time and let her slowly think it through? This is a process that requires patience. I can help her heal her body and nurse her back to health. However, she will need to slowly think through this heart of hers. Her clear eyes were filled with concern. She could only do this much, but she believed that Lady She would let go of everything sooner or later. When the day comes when Lady She is willing to say the other party's name, she would have already let go of it. Not long later, Bailey Yunyan walked out of the room with a look of surprise on her face. Lady Yixian, you're really amazing. You only talked to my sister for a short while, and she's already in a much better state. Although it can't be compared to before, her eyes are starting to regain their luster. I'm really grateful to you, Bailey Yunyan said emotionally. You're too polite. We're friends, and I'm happy to be able to help you. Do you think Shi will still take things too hard? Bailey Yunyan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. She now felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was really a genius doctor. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and shook her head. I don't think she will. It's just that she was first betrayed by a heartless man and then expelled by your family. It was a big blow to her. Right now, she really needs company. If you have time, you should spend more time with her. It's good to walk around with her, but don't ask too much about what happened before. She'll naturally tell you when she figures it out. Bailey Yunyan nodded. I understand. I will write a few prescriptions. On the one hand, it will be used to treat her previous weakness. On the other hand, she needs to recuperate. Although this kind of mental illness wasn't a real illness, it still caused a lot of damage to the body. After her body recovers, she won't feel so uncomfortable anymore. Maybe her mood will be better. Then I'm really grateful to you. Bailey Yunyan's eyes blossomed with splendor. She really didn't expect the heavens to send such a helper. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't appear, they really wouldn't know what to do now. Chapter 44-48. After dealing with the problem, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't stay in the courtyard for long. They had done everything they could. This kind of problem couldn't be completely solved in a short time. After all, they were outsiders. It was fine to stay here. It would be more comfortable to stay in the restaurant. Then you guys can rest in the elegant sky residence. If there's anything, come find me directly. Di Xiaofeng urged. Don't worry, we'll be fine. After walking out of the courtyard, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't plan to go anywhere else. They went straight to the elegant sky residence. Ever since the incident in the demonic dragon abyss, we spent most of our time healing and didn't cultivate properly. Let's take advantage of this time to break through and increase our cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichen. Last time, in front of the 4 assassins, they didn't have the power to fight back. It was obvious how powerful their opponents were. Since they were still alive, once the other party knew about this, they might come looking for trouble. Moreover, they had already made up their mind to take revenge. Therefore, increasing their strength was the most important thing now. Di Beichen's eyes darkened. That's right. Let's go into closed-door cultivation after we go back. Strength was the foundation of everything. If they didn't have enough strength, even if they found an opponent, it would be very difficult to take revenge. Ziren and the others were very fast. Last time, he and Shangguan Yingying saw the other party leave with their own eyes. They had already memorized the entrance to the upper realm clearly. During this period of time, they had been hoping to enter the upper realm as soon as possible. This time they really could go. Their speed was extremely fast. The 5 of them smoothly passed through the skeletons and arrived at the entrance to the upper realm. Standing in front of the entrance, the 5 of them looked at each other. Then, they smiled at each other and walked in together. The world spun. When they saw everything in front of them again, they were already in another place. Looking at the entrance behind them and the completely different scene in front of them, they knew that they had successfully reached the upper realm. This is the upper realm. Shangguan Yingying's eyes sparkled with excitement. It's quite fast. The teleportation array is really useful. When Ziren and the rest had faint smiles on their faces, they had finally arrived at the place they had been waiting for. Ao Lingxiao looked at everything in front of him. His gaze was deep and complicated. Back then, he'd been forced to leave the upper realm and hide in the lower realm. Yet now, he'd finally returned. After such a long time, he didn't know what had happened to his family. However, he would definitely find a way to reveal the truth to the world. His hands under his sleeves gradually clenched into fists. The enormous strength caused his knuckles to turn white, but it was still not enough to express the hatred in his heart. "Let's go out," Mo Yunjue reminded everyone. Hearing this, Ao Lingxiao and the others recovered from their thoughts and walked out together. Walking on the bustling street, everyone looked at the bustling scene and felt joy in their hearts. Chapter 44-49. When Ziren, Mo Yunjue, and Wan Yanling were also observing their surroundings. However, what they noticed more was that the auras of the people around them were extremely powerful. It was impossible to see such a scene in the lower realm. The situation was just as Ao Lingxiao had said. The cultivators in the upper realm were generally very powerful. With their strength, they could do whatever they wanted in the lower realm. However, they were just ordinary people here. I noticed a few very powerful auras just now. The cultivators here really can't be underestimated, Mo Yunjue said slowly. Ziren nodded slightly. We still have to keep a low profile. Don't offend people casually. Otherwise, once we get into trouble, it'll be really bad. Hearing you guys talk like this, I'm a little worried. Previously, when Hong Zhuang and Beichen came to the upper realm, it was just the two of them. It was quite dangerous, Shangguan Yingying said emotionally. Beichen and Hong Zhuang are both smart people. They definitely have the ability to protect themselves. Ziren patted Shangguan Yingying's shoulder. His cultured and elegant face was filled with relief. You're right. Hong Zhuang and Beichen are both very resourceful. When we first arrived at Penglai Island, if it wasn't for the two of them, it would have been very difficult for us to escape. Even though quite some time had passed, she could still remember everything clearly until now. At that time, she thought that they wouldn't be able to escape the heaven-shaking faction's pursuit. However, she never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen would be able to turn the tables on them. This is Water Cloud City. After Ao Lingxiao asked a few questions, he already knew where they were. Coming from the lower realm to the upper realm is a random teleportation. There are a total of 8 cities. Junior Brother D and the others could have arrived at any one of these 8 cities. However, they should be at the D family now. Let's stay here for today. Everyone can also look around and familiarize themselves with the environment of the upper realm. When Ziren and the others nodded, their goal in coming to the upper realm was to meet up with Di Beichen and the others as soon as possible. Junior Brother Ao, can you tell me a total of 8 cities? I'm going to find my brother. Currently, I don't know which city he is in. I might have to go to a few more places, Wan Yanling said with a smile. Hearing this, Ao Lingxiao reacted and hurriedly said, No problem, these 8 cities are Water Cloud City, Rong and City. Since Senior Apprentice Brother Wanyan wants to gather information, why don't we gather some information in Water Cloud City first? Maybe we're lucky and eldest senior brother is here? Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows slightly. Although she often heard about Wanyan Han, she had never seen him before. If she could see eldest senior brother's heroic figure before she left, it would be pretty good. No need. Wan Yanling smiled and waved his hand. You must be tired from rushing all the way here. Let's find a place to rest first. Senior Apprentice Brother Wanyan, we're from the same sect. Naturally, we should take care of each other when we're outside. You don't have to be so polite. When Ziren laughed and said, "Actually, we're not tired yet, right?" Mo Yunjue and Ao Lingxiao both nodded. If it was in the past, it might have been a bit tiring for them to pass through the training ground. However, it was much easier now. That's right. Let's gather information together. We can also find out if Beichen and the others were here before. Chapter 4450. For a moment, the five of them began to ask around. However, the final result disappointed them. Looks like we're not that lucky. They're not in Water Cloud City, Mo Yunjue said in a low voice, a complicated look in his deep eyes. Shangguan Yingying sighed. 1 in 8 chance. It's really hard to be so coincidental, but it doesn't matter. We'll find them eventually. Let's not be discouraged. Since no one knows about this place, we'll go somewhere else to ask around, Ziren said. Everyone nodded. How easy would it be to find a few people in the upper realm? Before they came, Wan Yanling should have been prepared to spend time looking for them. Everyone asked around as they walked forward. When they passed by a restaurant, Shangguan Yingying stopped in her tracks. A guilty smile appeared on her delicate and beautiful face. Are you guys hungry? As soon as she said that, everyone smiled knowingly. I think you're just hungry because you smelled the aroma coming from inside, right? Ziren looked at Shangguan Yingying dotingly. They had been eating dry rations for the past few days. With Shangguan Yingying's personality, she must want to try the dishes of the upper realm. Shangguan Yingying chuckled. We haven't tried the food of the upper realm before. It's time to eat. Let's go in and fill our stomachs first. Her gaze swept over Mo Yunjue and the others. When she saw that no one had any objections, her eyes lit up. I saw many restaurants along the way, but this one has the best business. The aroma coming from it is the most fragrant. I've never seen you observe so carefully. Your observation skills are unparalleled. Ziren laughed involuntarily. Shangguan Yingying shook her head proudly. This is also a kind of ability. Look at the name, Elegant Heaven Residence. It looks pretty good. Since Yingying is hungry, let's go in, Mo Yunjue said slowly. It's getting late. It's time to eat. As they chatted, the five of them walked into Elegant Heaven Residence. As soon as they entered the restaurant, the five of them could already feel the liveliness inside. Fortunately, there is a table inside. If we came a little later, we wouldn't have anything to eat. After sitting down, Shangguan Yingying immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Don't worry. If you want to eat it, you can just come back after you miss the most time, Ao Lingxiao said. As they chatted and laughed, they inadvertently began to size up the people around them. However, when Mo Yunjue's gaze swept across the people at the table beside him, his gaze quietly deepened. Noticing the change in Mo Yunjue's expression, Ziren couldn't help but ask, Yunjue, what's wrong with you? Why do you have such an expression? The people at the table next door are the same people we saw when we first came out of the entrance. They are looking at us suspiciously. Something feels wrong. Hearing that, Ziren also quietly looked at them. Although he didn't know Mo Yunjue for long, he knew that Mo Yunjue was a very powerful person. His eyesight was also very accurate. Looking at them, he also felt that something was wrong. You're right. They keep looking at us. What are they trying to do? Ziren frowned. The other party's gaze was obviously not friendly. However, they didn't know each other and he didn't know what they were trying to do. Chapter 4451. I didn't expect you newbies to be so rich. You actually came to the best restaurant in Water Cloud City to eat. Since that's the case, why don't you hand over the money and let me, your big brother, live freely? The man's face was filled with a sinister smile. The threat between his brows could not be more obvious. The mockery in his eyes clearly indicated that he was certain that they would not dare to resist. Hearing the man's words, the faces of Mo Yunjue and the others immediately turned cold. They had long guessed that the other party was up to no good, but they did not expect him to have such thoughts. Why should we give it to you? Shangguan Yingying said coldly. Hearing this, the man's gaze fell on Shangguan Yingying. Little girl, I advise you to obediently hand over the spirit stones now. Otherwise, it won't be so easy to solve this problem later. As he spoke, the man gestured behind him. The three men behind him also had provocative looks on their faces. You're just rookies who just came from the lower realm. In the upper realm, it's best for you to be obedient. Otherwise, if we're in a bad mood and kill you, it won't be worth it for you. His joking words were filled with mockery and threats. The man sat down next to Emo Yunjue without any scruples. Hurry up, don't waste my time. The faces of Xiren and the others immediately turned extremely ugly. They did not expect to encounter such a problem as soon as they arrived in the upper realm. If the other party had fewer people, they might have been able to put up a fight. However, the other party had many people, so this was a little troublesome. However, it was absolutely impossible for them to hand over the spirit stones just like that. Take your hand off my shoulder. Emo Yunjue's voice was cold, and his deep eyes contained a hidden sharpness. The man chuckled and looked at Emo Yunjue disdainfully. I hate Xiao Bai faces like you the most. I won't let go. What can you do about it? Emo Yunjue's appearance had always been extremely outstanding. In fact, from the moment he walked into the restaurant, many people had already noticed him. Such a handsome man coupled with his cold and arrogant temperament was exceptionally charming. However, in the eyes of the man, he was extremely displeased. The moment the man finished speaking, Emo Yunjue grabbed his hand and placed it on the table. At the same time, his other hand took out a pair of chopsticks from the bamboo tube and stabbed them without hesitation. His movements were as fast as lightning, and it was done in one breath. Almost everyone present could not react in time. Ah! The man screamed as the chopsticks pierced through his palm, causing blood to flow out. Hearing the man's screams, his friends came over one after another. The man's eyes were burning with rage. He wanted nothing more than to tear Emo Yunjue to shreds. Brat, you're courting death. However, Emo Yunjue was still as cold as ever. Since you have nowhere to put your hands, I'll help you solve it. Isn't that great? When everyone in the Elegant Sky residence saw this scene, they couldn't help but reveal astonished expressions. No one would have thought that this refined and handsome man would be so swift and decisive when he made his move. His movements were fast and his methods were ruthless. They couldn't help but look at him in a new light. Motherf *Ker, kill them! The man shouted angrily. The other three men's auras instantly exploded. Two of them were Astral Rays Level 2, and one was Astral Rays Level 3. Seeing this, Emo Yunjue and the rest did not back down. Their auras were not any weaker than the other parties. Chapter 44-52. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen returned to the Elegant Sky residence, they found that there was a conflict inside. They couldn't help but be surprised. The Elegant Sky residence was the largest restaurant in Water Cloud City. They didn't expect that someone would be so insensible as to start a fight here. However, when they heard that familiar voice, both of them were stunned. They looked in the direction of the source of the voice in disbelief. Kill them! I want them all to die here. The man looked at his hand that had been pierced by the bamboo chopstick. Murderous intent boiled in his heart. He didn't expect that a few newcomers from the lower realm would dare to attack him like this. They were simply digging their own graves. In the past, when he encountered cultivators from the upper realm, the other party usually didn't dare to say a word when they tried to rob them. Who would have thought that he would encounter such an exception this time? However, just as he was thinking about how to make them beg for mercy later, a hand had already grabbed his neck and lifted him up. Who dares to attack me? The deep and magnetic voice was filled with anger and threat. It was also filled with arrogance. The man couldn't help but be stunned by the sudden turn of events. He stared at the man in front of him with wide eyes. He didn't understand what this had to do with him. Why did this strange guy suddenly appear out of nowhere? What does it have to do with you that I'm teaching someone a lesson? The three men who were about to attack realized that their friend had been restrained. Their expressions changed immediately. They quickly turned to Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Put him down!" When Ziren and the others obviously did not expect that there would be people helping them in this unfamiliar place, Water Cloud City. At first glance, it was obvious that these two people were strangers. However, after noticing that familiar gaze, Ziren and Shangguan Yingying recognized him almost immediately. Di Baichen. They grew up with Di Baichen since they were young. They couldn't be more familiar with him. Even if his appearance was different, they could still recognize him at first glance. They knew how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang's disguise was. Therefore, they could understand the changes on their faces. Mo Yunjue looked at the delicate and pretty woman in front of him. It was a pair of completely unfamiliar faces, but he still recognized her at first glance. Bailey Hongzhuang. Other than Bailey Hongzhuang, there was no one else in that pair of sparkling and translucent eyes. For a moment, when Ziren, Shangguan Yingying, and Mo Yunjue were all pleasantly surprised. They had originally thought that they would only be able to see Di Baichen and the others after going to the Di family. They had never thought that they would meet them on their first day in the upper realm. How could they not be pleasantly surprised? However, while Ziren and the others were extremely pleasantly surprised, Ao Lingxiao and Wan Yanling were looking at the man and woman who had appeared in front of them in confusion. Could it be that they had met someone who had acted bravely for a just cause? There were so many people in the restaurant, but no one had come out to help. They hadn't expected that these two people, who had just arrived at the restaurant, would be willing to help. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen stared at Ziren and the others. Their eyes met, and they were filled with excitement. "You're not letting go, are you?" The other man looked angry. "You're courting death." They had thought that the matter could be resolved with just a few words. They hadn't thought that it would end up like this. The most despicable thing was that the other party actually had helpers. Chapter 44-53. Clang! The man was sent flying by Di Baichen's kick. He fell to the ground and smashed into the table next door, drenching his body with vegetable soup. The colorful soup drenched his hair and his clothes were in a mess. A piece of vegetable was hanging on his head, making him look extremely miserable. The man quickly got up from the ground and wiped the vegetable soup off his face so that his vision would not be so blurry. However, when he looked at Di Baichen again, he was no longer as arrogant as before. This was because when Di Baichen made his move, he could clearly feel that his opponent was not weak. At the very least, he was stronger than him. The guests at the other table could only stand up and walk to the other side because of the man's sudden appearance. There was some dissatisfaction on their faces. For a moment, the other two cultivators did not dare to make a move because Di Baichen already had a hostage in his hands. From the man's cold and murderous gaze, they were sure that if they made a move again, this man would not hesitate to break the hostage's neck. "Let him go quickly." The two men looked at each other and hurriedly said. However, Di Baichen's expression was still cold and indifferent. He only stared expressionlessly at the struggling man who was being choked by his neck. "I won't let him go. What can you do?" "You." The man was speechless for a moment. His eyes were filled with anger, but he did not know what to say. After seeing such a big commotion, the shopkeeper hurriedly rushed over. When he saw that it was Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen, a smile immediately appeared on his face. "So it's Sir Situ and Miss Lan. If you have something to say, let's talk nicely. Can we not make a move first?" The shopkeeper's face was filled with a warm smile like a spring breeze. Even though many of his things had been destroyed, it did not dampen his enthusiasm. Hearing this, Di Baichen glanced at the shopkeeper and then at the other three men. He immediately understood. "Sir Situ, I guarantee that they won't dare to make a move again. I will give you a satisfactory explanation." The shopkeeper's sharp eyes swept over them, and the arrogance of the three men was immediately extinguished. Seeing this, Di Baichen let go of his hand. As far as he knew, Di Xiaofeng was very familiar with the shopkeeper of the Elegant Sky residence. Therefore, after the shopkeeper appeared, they still had to give the shopkeeper some face. After Di Baichen loosened his grip, the guy whose face had turned purple gasped for air. "You guys dare to cause trouble in my Elegant Sky residence today. I think you guys are really bold." The shopkeeper's eyes were sharp and angry, like a sharp knife, making people not dare to look at him directly. The four men immediately smiled in embarrassment. "Shopkeeper, we didn't do it on purpose." "Not on purpose." The shopkeeper snorted coldly, obviously not buying it. "You were the one who started the conflict, and now you're saying that you didn't do it on purpose? Who would believe you?" At the same time, Ziren and the others could not help but look at each other. They were not stupid people. When the conflict broke out earlier, the shopkeeper did not appear at all. The only reason he appeared now was because of Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. If they had not come, even if they died here, the shopkeeper might not have appeared. It seemed that Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were living quite well in Watercloud City. "Why aren't you apologizing immediately?" the shopkeeper said coldly. Chapter 44-54. Seeing the four men standing there unwillingly, the shopkeeper's expression turned cold. "I think you don't want to stay in Watercloud City any longer." As soon as he said that, the four men's expressions changed. They hurriedly said, "Shopkeeper, don't. That's not what we meant." "Then apologize quickly," the shopkeeper shouted angrily. "If you can't appease young Master Sidhu and Miss Lan, don't even think about leaving this place." The four men's legs trembled. The unwillingness and anger on their faces disappeared. They hurriedly apologized. "Young Master Sidhu, Miss Lan, we didn't know they were your friends. Please forgive us and let us go." "If we knew they were your friends, we wouldn't have dared to do this even if we had 100 guts." Di Baichen's expression was cold. "They're the ones you need to apologize to." Hearing that, the four men looked at Ziren and the others with complicated expressions. They were so depressed that they were about to die. They thought these newcomers were pushovers. They didn't expect them to have helpers in the upper realm. The shopkeeper of the Elegant Sky residence thought so highly of them. They had really misjudged this time. They went for wool and came home shorn. They were completely screwed today. "We're sorry," the four men said in unison. "We were wrong before. Please forgive us. Please be magnanimous and let us go." After seeing this scene, the cultivators in the lobby couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen. They secretly wondered who these two people were. The Elegant Sky residence has a powerful background. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to cause trouble here. The shopkeeper has always ignored these things. I didn't expect him to step in today for these two people's sake. It seems these two people's identities aren't simple. These two people look very unfamiliar. I've never seen them before in Watercloud City. Could it be that their identities aren't simple? No, these two people are young Master Di's friends. I see. Everyone looked at each other. For a moment, many people began to become interested in Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the Elegant Heaven residence was only a restaurant, to be able to achieve such success in Watercloud City, it naturally had a force supporting it. A trace of disdain appeared in the eyes of Ziren and the others when they saw the four of them bowing their heads and apologizing like frosted eggplants. Thinking back to how arrogant they were before, it was really ironic. Weren't you all very arrogant before? I didn't expect it to become like this in the blink of an eye. What a joke! Shangguan Yingying sneered. If it weren't for Di Baichen's coincidental appearance, it would have been very troublesome. Yes, it's all our fault. We're just a joke. Just treat it as a joke and forget about us. The four men nodded like chickens pecking at rice. No matter what the other party said, they only had one attitude, and that was to admit their mistakes. Otherwise, if they didn't doubt the shopkeeper's words, they might not be able to walk out of Elegant Sky residence today. Looking at the other party's cowardly appearance, everyone was too lazy to talk nonsense with them. Just based on their current state, they probably wouldn't have the guts to cause trouble for them again. Scram! As D. Bachen's cold voice fell, the four men immediately scrambled out of the elegant Sky residence as if they had been pardoned. Chapter 44:55. Shopkeeper, you're too polite. We should be the ones thanking you. D. Bachen cupped his hands. After all, this was the elegant Sky residence's territory. If they killed those annoying fellows here, it would have a negative impact on the place. You're young Master D's friends, so of course I have to treat you well. However, I didn't expect something like this to happen. It's my fault for not treating you well. These are your friends, right? I'll immediately send someone to prepare a room for them. They can stay here for the next few days. Everything will be waived. Consider it my apology. Shopkeeper, there's no need for that. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but speak up. The shopkeeper waved his hand. It's my duty, it's my duty. Please don't refuse. Seeing this, although Bailey Hongzhuang and Wen Xinyao were a little helpless, they had no choice but to agree. After the shopkeeper left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and smiled. Even if something like that happened just now, it still didn't affect their joy of reuniting. Immediately, everyone walked into the room under D. Bachen's lead. They really had too much to say. As soon as the door closed, Shangguan Yingying excitedly ran in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and grabbed her hand. Her crystal clear and bright eyes flashed with joy. That's great. Hongzhuang, I finally see you again. Bailey Hongzhuang was also very surprised. Yes, I didn't expect to meet you here. When did you come to the upper realm? We just arrived today. When we passed by, we felt hungry, so we walked in to eat. We didn't expect to encounter something like this. Shangguan Yingying pursed her lip. At first, I thought that it was very unlucky to encounter something like this. However, if this didn't happen, we might have missed each other. I'm so happy now. Ziren looked at D. Bachen. The two of them hammered each other's shoulders with smiles on their handsome faces. You brat, we finally meet again. Seeing you like this, I'm relieved. After exchanging a few words with Shangguan Yingying, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to Mo Yunjue, who was looking at them from the side. Her beautiful face was filled with a bright smile, and her eyes were bright and resplendent. Welcome to the upper realm. Mo Yunjue chuckled. It seems that our luck is good. I didn't know when I would find you. I didn't expect to meet you on the first day. Heaven's arrangement. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. It's good to see you again. Originally, Ao Lingxiao and Wanyan Ling didn't understand what was going on. They also didn't understand why when Ziren and the others, who had never been to the upper realm, would have helpers. However, after listening to their conversation, they immediately understood. Their eyes were filled with shock. And Junior S. And Junior. And you. And Junior. And Ao. Ao Lingxiao looked at them in astonishment. No wonder he felt that they looked a little familiar, but he couldn't figure out who they were. Now that the other party had revealed their identities, he finally understood. It was really a pleasant surprise. D. Bachen nodded and smiled faintly. Long time no see. Wen Xinyao was the most unfamiliar with everyone. However, at this moment, he was very happy. Meeting fellow disciples in the upper realm was no different from family. Senior Brotherling, I didn't expect you to come too. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Wen Xinyao with a smile. Chapter 44:56. Wanyan Ling smiled and nodded. That's right. It just so happened that junior brother Mo and the others were coming to the upper realm, so I came with them. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Bachen looked at each other and smiled. Wanyan Han had always been worried about his younger brother, looking forward to when Wanyan Ling would come to the upper realm. They didn't expect to meet everyone when they came to Water Cloud City this time. Wanyan Han and Wanyan Ling would be reunited soon. Just as they were about to talk about Wanyan Han, there was a knock on the door. D. Bachen opened the door and saw a waiter walking over with wine and dishes. The shopkeeper said that those guys just now ruined your lunch, so he made new dishes and sent them over. I hope you'll enjoy them. The shopkeeper is too courteous. Please thank him for me. The waiter left after putting down the dishes. Looking at the dishes on the table, they were much more sumptuous than what they had ordered before. Bachin, this shopkeeper is really courteous to you. From his performance just now, I feel that this restaurant is not simple. Those guys were originally quite arrogant, but as soon as the shopkeeper appeared and said nothing, they were already terrified. It seems that you're doing quite well in Water Cloud City. Zyron raised his eyebrows, his eyes full of ridicule and interest. We only saved one person. The shopkeeper was only like this because of the other party. Saved one person? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Actually, we've only been in Water Cloud City for a few days. On the way here, we saw someone injured, so we helped. The other party is also a good person. His name is Di Xiaofeng. If he comes later, you'll see him. No wonder. Shangguan Ying understood. I heard the shopkeeper mention Di Xiaofeng just now. But this is really interesting. His surname is also Di? Di Baichen chuckled. Not only that, the woman he likes is called Bailey Yunyan. Her surname is also Bailey. Zyron and the others were stunned. Such a coincidence? That's right. From the looks of it, you two are really fated. After the joy of reuniting, Zyron couldn't help but frown. There was confusion between his brows. Baichen, you've been in the upper realm for a period of time. Why are you here instead of going to the D clan? Mo Yunjue and Ao Lingxiao both stared at Di Baichen. Regarding this point, they also felt very confused. We originally planned to go, but the upper realm is very big. Ordinary cultivators can't come into contact with that kind of existence. We asked many people, but none of them knew where the D family was. Therefore, we could only give up. We've been thinking about when we'd be able to meet up with you. Now that Ao Lingxiao is here, we can come out together. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up. Ao Lingxiao, knowing the location of the Supreme D clan, was undoubtedly a piece of good news to them. However, after everyone heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they couldn't help but be stunned. You can't find the Supreme D clan? Mo Yunjue frowned. Shouldn't it be the Supreme D clan looking for you? At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen couldn't help but be stunned. They didn't understand what the other party meant. Why would the Supreme D clan look for us? Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Ao Lingxiao's serious expression, everyone understood that they probably didn't know what was going on. Chapter 44-57. Looking at Shangguan Yingying's matter-of-fact manner when she said those words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen both frowned as several thoughts appeared in their minds. What do you mean? Seems like the D family's people haven't found you yet. Shangguan Yingying sighed. Baichen, we have already confirmed that you are the young master of the D family. Moreover, you definitely wouldn't have thought that Di Yujue, whom you saw before, was actually your father. Following Shangguan Yingying's words, Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were both stunned as a look of astonishment appeared on their faces. What did you say? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with disbelief. This news was simply too unbelievable. Di Yujue was actually Baichen's father? It's true. Shangguan Yingying emphasized seriously. Previously, when we returned to Penglai Palace, Uncle Di had been waiting for us to come out. Afterwards, when he found out that you were in danger, he immediately rushed over with us. However, we didn't expect that in the end, we were still a bit late. When we arrived, we only saw Baichen's back. He had already arrived at the upper realm. Therefore, Uncle Di also immediately came to the upper realm. With the D family's strength, we felt that we should be able to find you very quickly. Zyron also said, we originally thought that when we came to the upper realm, we would only be able to see you after we arrived at the D family. Who would have thought that we would be able to see you as soon as we arrived here? It's really surprising. Now we finally understand why Beichen acted so strangely when he first met Uncle D. I think this must be due to familial affection. If not, Beichen definitely wouldn't be so close to someone he had never met before. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen listened to everyone's narration. Only then did they understand what had happened. However, when they came to the upper realm, they actually didn't know anything. Previously, when Uncle D left Penglai Island, he went to Tiangang Sect. After confirming your identity at Tiangang Sect, he immediately returned to Penglai Island to look for you. I just didn't expect to miss it so coincidentally, and we also received a letter from Sect Master Situ. As he spoke, Xiren took out the letter from his Qiankuan bag. He had kept the letter with him all this time. If it weren't for the fact that Beichen and the others weren't around, he wouldn't have opened it himself. After Di Beichen took the letter and skimmed through its contents, his expression suddenly became complicated. He never thought that it would turn out like this. From the first time he saw Diujue, he had a very strange feeling. No one had ever made him feel so familiar. However, he could never imagine that Diujue was actually his father. After Di Beichen finished reading the contents of the letter, Bailey Hongzhuang took the letter. After she finished reading the contents of the letter, her heart was also filled with shock. However, since even her grandfather had confirmed this news, it seemed like it was the truth. Xiren and the others looked at Di Beichen's expression. They knew that this news must be hard for him to accept for a while. In fact, when they first heard this news, they also felt that it was unbelievable. Chapter 44-58. After everyone left, only Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were left in the room. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up Di Beichen. Ever since he knew about this, Di Beichen's expression had been so complicated. She didn't know what Beichen was thinking. Beichen, since grandfather and the others have confirmed this news, it shouldn't be wrong. Di Beichen nodded slightly. He also knew that this news couldn't be wrong. However, he had always guessed what kind of person his father was. When he found out, he still felt complicated. Perhaps it was because he hadn't imagined his father's real appearance for so many years. When this appearance became clear, he actually had an indescribably complicated feeling. When you found out about this, did you have an indescribable feeling? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her eyes sparkled as she stared at Di Beichen. When I found out that my biological parents were someone else, my thoughts were also very complicated. However, what we know now is that they haven't given up on looking for you all these years, right? To them, this was already the best news. Di Beichen nodded slightly. He still remembered that when he was chatting with Diujue said that he was looking for someone very important to him. All these years, he had been looking for that person, but there was no news at all. At that time, he even comforted Diujue that he would definitely find that person. However, he never thought that the person that Diujue was talking about would actually be him. Ao Lingxiao's judgment was really right. You are actually the young master of the Di family who was left behind. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Di Beichen was still immersed in his own thoughts and didn't say anything else. He needed some time to think things through. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang woke up and found Di Beichen still sitting at the table. Obviously, he hadn't slept the whole night. Beichen, are you still thinking about this? Bailey Hongzhuang walked to Di Beichen's side and sat down. She poured a cup of tea and handed it to Di Beichen. Di Beichen took the tea and a smile appeared on his handsome face. Did you sleep well? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, but her gaze was fixed on him. Obviously, she was waiting for his answer. My wife, I suddenly thought of a problem. Di Beichen's voice was deep and his expression was serious. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also became serious and asked, what problem? According to what Xiren said, with the Di family's ability in the upper realm, it would be very easy for them to find us. Moreover, when we were in Rong-Un City, we didn't disguise ourselves, nor did we conceal our identities. According to that situation, they would only need to ask around a little to know where we are. However, why haven't they found us yet? His deep, dark eyes rippled with the light of wisdom. Last night, he was in a complicated mood, but when he came out of it, he found some problems. Hearing Di Baichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment and understood what he meant. You mean the people who chased after us before? Di Baichen nodded slightly. They are too strong. Chapter 44:59. Back then, the assassins had appeared out of nowhere, and from the beginning to the end, they hadn't said who had sent them. Previously, they had always thought that it was either the Shao family or Gong Tianfeng who had sent them, because apart from these two possibilities, they could not think of any other possibilities. But now, after knowing the news, they thought of another possibility. Since Di Yujue had been looking for Di Baichen for so many years, his family must have been looking forward to his return. Logically speaking, it was impossible that they could not find him for so long. Therefore, the reason why they had not been nervous for so long was that someone must have been behind it. There are two possibilities. The first one is that the Di family's opponents got the news, and they don't want me to go back, so they attacked me before the Di family. As for the second possibility, it is that someone in the Di family doesn't want me to go back. Di Baichen said in a low voice. The Di family had not heard any news about him for so many years, until Di Yujue confirmed his identity. Thinking about it, Di Yujue must have only told the core members of the Di family before finding him. Under such circumstances, there was still someone who took the initiative to kill them. The situation could be imagined. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She had also thought of this possibility, but she was not willing to believe it. But in fact, this was not out of her expectations. Actually, you have been away for so many years. With such a big family like the Di family, there must be someone who wants to replace your identity. As long as you don't go back, he can use your resources. But once you go back, his interests will be affected, so this situation is not unexpected. They had already thought about this when they wanted to go to the Di family to confirm this problem. Indeed, Di Baichen said in a heavy voice, it seems that it is not easy to go back. Bailey Hongzhuang held Di Baichen's hand, and her bright eyes were shining with determination and certainty. Baichen, since we have confirmed your identity, even if the way back is difficult, we will still go back. Your parents have been looking forward to your return all these years. We don't care what others think, but we can't let them down. She knew that resources and interests were not what Baichen cared about. What he cared about most was his family. As long as his family was looking forward to his return, then he should go back. Looking at the smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, Di Baichen's cold heart was instantly warmed, and the cold corners of his mouth were gradually dyed with a smile. You are right. We should go back. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Ru walked out of the house, they found that Ziren and the others were having breakfast in the hall. Seeing the two of them, Ziren waved his hand, here. The two of them immediately walked to them and sat down. You have already come to eat, but you didn't call us. Ziren said that you might not be able to digest this news in a short time, so he asked you to have a good rest. We are going to send breakfast to your room later, Shangguan Yingying said. Do I look like I can't take it? Di Baichen raised his eyebrows and said. Chapter 44:60. Ao Lingxiao, do you know anything about the Di family? Di Baichen turned his gaze towards Ao Lingxiao. Currently, they didn't have any way to understand the Di family's situation. The only person who might know something was Ao Lingxiao. I only know a little bit of information. Moreover, I have been in the lower realm for quite some time now. I don't know much about the current situation. Ao Lingxiao shook his head, looking somewhat helpless. Then why don't you tell us what you know about the situation in the past? At least we can understand a little more, Wen Ziren said. All right. Ao Lingxiao nodded. According to what I know, Di Yujue was supposed to be the next head of the Di family. However, because the young master of the Di family disappeared, The old man didn't pass the position to Diujua all these years. Even so, everyone knows that the position of the next head of the family will fall on Diujua sooner or later. It's just that the old man of the D family was too angry, so he chose to do this. So, the people of the D family hope that Beichen will go back? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. At least Diujua and the old man of the D family really hoped that Di Beichen would go back. With these two people, once Di Beichen went back, the situation wouldn't be too bad. Ao Lingxiao nodded. Beichen is the second young master of the D family. His status is very high. The old man of the D family would naturally hope that he will go back. Second young master? Di Beichen's eyes narrowed. Then who is the eldest young master? Actually, I don't know much about this eldest young master. Ever since you disappeared, the D family has been very secretive about the news of their direct descendant. So much so that we don't know much about it. However, this young master is your eldest brother. It is said that he is also a proud son of heaven. As he spoke, Ao Lingxiao shrugged. In fact, with the Supreme Family's nurturing, as long as one's talent isn't too bad, he will definitely be nurtured into a genius. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone sighed with emotion. Indeed, with such a huge background, even if they used a pile of spiritual herbs, they would be able to produce a genius. Would the young master of the D family not want Beichen to go back? Mo Yunjua asked in a deep voice. In aristocratic families, there were often many shameful things behind this kind of power struggle. Ao Lingxiao shook his head. I don't think so. This young master is Beichen's brother, and he was so young when Beichen went missing. How could he have done anything to him? What you said makes sense. Zyron nodded. In that case, it should be someone else who did it? Right now, we can't rule out any possibilities. Anyway, before Beichen goes back, we have to be extra careful. No one knows if there will be any unknown dangers. Mo Yunjue's expression was serious. From the fact that the Supreme Family still couldn't find Di Beichen after so long, he had already sensed some clues. That's right, we still have to be extra careful. As for the specific situation, we will know when Beichen goes to the Supreme Family. Zyron looked at Di Beichen. When do you plan to go to the D family? No hurry. No hurry. Shangguan Yingying was surprised. Don't you want to go back and take a look? To be honest, when we were in Rong'an City, we were chased and almost lost our lives. Chapter 4461. If it weren't for the appearance of the skeleton army, we wouldn't be in this world anymore. Even though it had been a few days, Bailey Hongzhuang still felt a lingering fear whenever she recalled that scene. Their lives were hanging by a thread. That was a real life hanging by a thread. If it weren't for luck on their side, they would have been finished. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Zyron and the others looked at each other. Even though they hadn't personally experienced the previous scene, they could tell how dangerous the situation was from Bailey Hongzhuang's description. Indeed, if the aristocratic families of the upper world wanted to deal with them, with their current strength, they would have escaped death. So what are your plans now? Zyron looked at Di Beichen, his gentle face full of worry and concern. I plan to go back to Rong'an City first to make sure that it has nothing to do with the people there. If that's the case, then we can confirm the general result. Di Beichen said in a deep voice. That's fine. Anyway, now that we know your identity, it's only a matter of time before you go back to the D family. Mo Yunjua also said, this time, the D family hasn't been able to find you for such a long time. It's obvious that someone is obstructing the process. The other party can't hold back, so Uncle D can't possibly not know that someone is obstructing him. I'm sure that he has already started to investigate this matter. Di Beichen, it's not a bad idea to go back for the time being. Otherwise, once you go back, you'll be in an unfamiliar environment. The other party is in the dark while we are in the light. It's always more dangerous. That's right. To be on the safe side, it's better for us to increase our strength a little. Ao Lingxiao nodded. Although it was impossible for them to face a colossus like the D family with their current strength, at least they could protect themselves in the face of assassination. Wan Yenling listened to everyone's conversation, and his expression was extremely complicated. He really didn't expect Di Baichen to have such a shocking background. He also didn't expect that there would be so many dangers after this. Junior brother D, from what you've told me, I feel that your trip this time is really very dangerous. If you need help, I'll go with you first, and then look for my big brother. Wan Yenling was also conflicted. However, he had a good impression of Di Baichen's group. Now that they were in danger, how could he leave by himself? Following Wan Yenling's words, everyone could not help but feel surprised. In reality, they weren't very familiar with Wan Yenling. They didn't evade him because they believed in his personality. However, they hadn't thought that he would be willing to temporarily give up meeting with his eldest brother in order to help them. Then his feelings were much deeper. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other and smiled. Senior brother Ling and eldest senior brother are indeed brothers. Both of you are so willing to help others. Hearing this, Wan Yenling was slightly stunned. Junior sister Bailey entered Penglai Palace relatively late. Logically speaking, you shouldn't have seen my elder brother, right? Haha. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Previously, we were lucky enough to be in the same force as eldest senior brother. However, we were chased this time, so we didn't go with him. Chapter 4462. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a smile. Eldest senior brother is in Rong-Un City. When I first arrived in the upper realm, it was eldest senior brother who saved me. Speaking of which, this is all fate. As she recounted the process of how she met Wan Yenhan, everyone was deeply moved. They didn't expect their fate to be so deep. Hongzhuang, according to what you said, you didn't come to the upper realm with Baichen back then? Shangguan Ying immediately discovered the problem in Bailey Hongzhuang's words. No. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I came to the upper realm on my own. Baichen came later, but he found me very quickly. I see. Everyone sighed faintly. They didn't expect so many things to have happened. Situ Yishuan. Di Xiaofeng walked into the elegant Sky residence with a smile. He immediately saw Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang eating. It was only after he walked in that he noticed Wen Ziren and the others at the side. They were obviously very familiar with each other. Are these the new friends you made? Di Xiaofeng looked at Ziren and the others with a smile. His attitude was cordial and friendly. Di Baichen stood up. They are all our friends in the lower realm. I didn't expect them to be teleported to Water Cloud City. We only met them yesterday. Di Xiaofeng's eyes widened in surprise. What a coincidence. It seems that the fate between the two of you is not ordinary. Everyone chuckled and smiled at Di Xiaofeng. Why are you here so early in the morning? Di Baichen looked at Di Xiaofeng in confusion. Logically speaking, Di Xiaofeng should have stayed there to take care of the Bailey sisters. There's nothing going on over there. Yunyan is now chatting with Xie. It's not convenient for a man like me to follow, so I just came over. After all, I said I would be the host. I can't just leave you here. Hearing this, Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Di Xiaofeng was really enthusiastic. Xiaofeng, we plan to leave tomorrow, Di Baichen said slowly after thinking for a while. Since they had already made their decision, they did not intend to stay here any longer. It was better to go back and figure out everything. You're leaving so soon? I didn't even treat you properly. Di Xiaofeng frowned. His bright eyes dimmed. He was clearly unhappy. You've already done a good job. Di Baichen's expression was serious and solemn. You also know that we came to Water Cloud City because we were being hunted. Now we also want to go back and find out who did it. Looking at Di Baichen's serious expression, Di Xiaofeng stopped joking and asked seriously, Do you need my help? No need. We'll find out ourselves. Di Baichen patted Di Xiaofeng's shoulder. Thank you for your kindness. Although he guessed that Di Xiaofeng had a certain background, he did not want to drag Di Xiaofeng down with him. Since you've already decided, I won't keep you. I hope we'll have a chance to meet again in the future. We definitely will. If you need my help and can't find me, you can tell the manager of Elegant Sky House. He has a way to find me, Di Xiaofeng reminded. Thank you. Since you're leaving tomorrow, let's have a good gathering today. How about it? Chapter 4463. Inside the room, Beichen, this person you know also has the surname Di. Could he be related to the Di family? Ziren looked at Di Beichen. Although this was his first time meeting Di Xiaofeng, he felt that Di Xiaofeng's temperament was extraordinary. He shouldn't be an ordinary person. Faintly, he even felt that Di Xiaofeng might be a member of the Di family. We've asked and he said there's no relationship, Di Beichen smiled faintly. He also understood why Ziren would have such a guess. In fact, when he first found out, he also had such a thought, but in the end, he dismissed it. The surname Di rarely appears in the lower realm, but it appears more frequently in the upper realm, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. The Di family had existed for so many years, and in the process, there must have been many branch descendants. After several generations, although the surname was still Di, it was no longer related. So that's how it is. Ziren suddenly understood. That's true. If there really was such a relationship, you would have asked long ago. Why would you need me to worry about it? As he said this, Ziren couldn't help but laugh. Whether it was Di Beichen or Bailey Hongzhuang, they were both attentive people. They must have discovered this problem long ago. On this day, Di Beichen and the others had a good time touring the city under Di Xiaofeng's guidance. Ziren and the others had just arrived in the upper realm, so they were quite curious about many things here. With Di Xiaofeng and the others' introduction, touring Water Cloud City was like an outing. Bailey Yunyan also rushed over after learning that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were leaving. Miss Yixuan, I didn't expect you to leave so soon, Bailey Yunyan said with a regretful expression. I wanted to spend more time with you. Seeing the sincerity in Bailey Yunyan's beautiful eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. I also want to, but we still have some things to do, so we have to leave. I believe we'll have a chance to meet again in the future. It won't be too late to meet then. Bailey Yunyan nodded. I also think that day will come. Although they said that, they also understood that in this vast upper realm, once they went to different places, it would not be easy for them to meet again in the future. Before leaving, Bailey Hongzhuang checked on Bailey Shi's situation again and explained any possible problems she might encounter before leaving with peace of mind. Situ Yixuan, take care. Emperor Xiaofeng's eyes darkened. Take care of yourselves too. Di Beichen and Di Xiaofeng looked at each other. They were really fated. They had come to Water Cloud City because they were being hunted, and Di Xiaofeng had met them because he was being hunted. In fact, even if they didn't leave, Di Xiaofeng would have to leave Water Cloud City sooner or later to investigate the identity of his pursuers. Just like that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others began their journey back to Rong-Un City. Along the way, the happiest person was Wan Yanling, thinking back to when Ziren and the others had found Di Beichen so easily. He couldn't help but feel a little envious. He didn't expect that he would also find out his big brother's location so easily. It had been a long time since he last saw his big brother. Fortunately, from Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, he learned that his big brother was doing well, so he was relieved. Chapter 4464. Beichen, why didn't you tell Di Xiaofeng your true identity this time? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Di Beichen. She knew very well that Di Beichen really regarded Di Xiaofeng as a friend. She thought that he would definitely tell Di Xiaofeng all this, but she didn't expect that he chose not to say it. Telling him will only cause trouble. Di Beichen slowly said, Our opponent is so powerful. As long as he knows that we are still alive, he will definitely not let us go easily. If Di Xiaofeng knows our true situation and accidentally tells it, It will bring him trouble. That would be really bad. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. It was precisely because he regarded Di Xiaofeng as a true friend that he didn't want to harm him. When we solve these problems in the future, it won't be too late to talk about it when we have the chance to meet him. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a smile. She only hoped that they would have a chance to meet again in the future. Everyone walked all the way in the direction of Rong'an City. There was some distance between Rong'an City and Tianshui City, and it would take some time to travel, but fortunately it wasn't too far. They only needed to walk to the transmission array to be able to be transmitted, so it didn't take too much time. While Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were hurrying, Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao were immersed in the grief of Di Beichen's death. They never thought that going out to gain experience would turn out like this. Their last friend died just like that. They didn't even know who did it. They wanted to take revenge, but they couldn't. How uncomfortable was this feeling? Alas, if we knew it would be like this, we wouldn't have gone. Yi Haomiao sighed faintly. Recalling the days when he was with Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, he really missed it. Unfortunately, he couldn't go back. Wanyan Han fell into silence. In the end, they were involved in this dispute because of me. I hope I can still get to know them in my next life. Yi Haomiao sighed. I'm getting more and more unhappy when I see Xiaorojin now. She usually pretends to be benevolent, but this time, she's completely exposed. Without Beichen and Hongzhuang, our situation in the Blazing Sect has become difficult. We should focus on our cultivation. Otherwise, it will be difficult for us to maintain our current positions. Wanyan Han had a complicated expression on his face. He knew very well that the main reason why they developed well in the Raging Flame School was because of Bailey Hongzhuang. On one hand, it was because she was an inscription master. On the other hand, it was because she was an extremely talented light attribute cultivator. At the end of the day, they were just basking in the limelight. Now that the Hongzhuang duo was no longer around, they had to rely on themselves. A few days later, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others successfully arrived at Rong'an City. Looking at this familiar city, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen felt rather emotional. Beichen, we'll join the Raging Flame School under another identity when we return. What do you think? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with raised brows. Since those assassins knew they were coming here to kill them, they would naturally confirm the news here. If they returned with their original appearances, they would probably be discovered very quickly. Thus, their only choice was to hide their identities. Di Beichen nodded slightly. All right. Chapter 4465. What should we do now? Wanyan Ling looked at Di Beichen. Go directly to the Raging Flame School to find my big brother? That doesn't seem appropriate. Although he was looking forward to seeing his big brother immediately, he didn't want to bring trouble to Di Beichen and the others because of his own affairs. You guys go to the restaurant first. We'll go find our big brother. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. We know where he usually goes. We'll go directly to him. Okay. After seeing everyone enter the restaurant, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen set off. Big Brother usually has things to do in the guild. At this time, he might be on his way to the guild. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen. They had been with Wanyan Han for a long time and had a certain understanding of his habits. Di Beichen nodded. Go to the path that they must pass. You'll definitely see them. Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao went to the guild as usual. As a member of the guild, they could obtain some cultivation resources by doing some things for the guild. For cultivators like them who had no background, cultivation resources were undoubtedly extremely important. Having such an opportunity was already a great thing for them. It didn't take long for Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen to see two familiar figures coming in their direction. Both of them couldn't help but chuckle. Look, it's Big Brother and Haomiao. As Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao got closer, Di Beichen pretended to accidentally bump into them. Yi Haomiao took 2 steps back. He frowned and looked at the man in front of him unhappily. Why don't you watch where you're going? Sorry. Di Baichen smiled. Looking at Di Baichen's bright smile, Yi Haomiao felt annoyed for no reason. Do you look like you're apologizing? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a smile. Brother, I can tell at a glance that we are destined to be good friends. What do you think? What nonsense are you talking about? Yi Haomiao looked at the two people in front of him in confusion. Whether it was their appearance or their words, they were all baffling. He actually didn't know what to say. He had seen people who acted like they were familiar with each other, but he had never seen someone who acted like they were familiar with each other. Wanyan Han looked at the two people in front of him but inexplicably felt a feeling of déjà vu. He could not help asking, "Who are you guys?" "Of course we're your good friends." Bailey Hongzhuang dragged her words. "Eldest senior brother." Both Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao couldn't help but be stunned when they heard the words, "eldest senior brother." Both of them widened their eyes in disbelief. "Junior sister?" Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. "Haha, it's been a long time. Junior sister, you guys are still alive." Wanyan Han's face was filled with surprise. "That's great. So it's you guys. I was wondering why the other party was so baffling. You guys are deliberately messing with me." Yi Haomiao laughed and scolded. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "Isn't this a surprise for you guys? Where have you been all this time? We thought you guys—" Shoo, Di Baichen lowered his voice. Chapter 4466. Eldest senior brother, come find us at the Yunlai restaurant when you're done, Bailey Hongzhuang said. However, Wanyan Han shook his head. How can we still be in the mood to go to the guild in this situation? You should tell us what happened during this period of time. It's been too torturous for us. Seeing that Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang had returned safely, they felt as if a huge rock had been lifted from their hearts. Their entire bodies relaxed and their hearts were immersed in joy. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other and nodded with a smile. Okay. Then let's talk as we walk. This time, we came back with a big gift for you, eldest senior brother. Bailey Hongzhuang blinked and pretended to be mysterious. A big gift? Wanyan Han looked puzzled. What gift? You'll know when you see it with your own eyes. Your return this time is really mysterious. Yi Haomiao narrowed his eyes. Obviously, he felt helpless against these two people who kept him in suspense. As long as it's a surprise and not a shock. That's true. In that case, you also don't know who attacked you previously? Wanyan Han's face was filled with surprise. He completely didn't expect such an outcome. Di Baichen nodded. The other party was very secretive. They didn't say anything until the end. We think it was either Xiao Rojin or the vice president of the Holy Assembly. These two people are not easy to deal with. Yi Haomiao's eyes were filled with disgust. He really didn't have a good impression of these two people. We've come back this time to confirm the identity of the person who attacked us. Then, are you disguising yourselves to avoid being discovered by them? Wanyan Han asked. He had already seen Bailey Hongzhuang's disguise technique, so he didn't find it strange at all. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The assassins from last time must have thought that we were dead. If we come back, we will definitely attract their attention again. Last time, we had a narrow escape from death. If we encounter it again, we might not be so lucky. You're right. Wanyan Han's expression was solemn and serious. This time, after you come back, you must be careful. You must not be discovered by them. Don't worry, Haomiao and I will keep it a secret. We definitely won't let it slip. Yi Haomiao hurriedly nodded as well. That's right, we definitely won't leak it out. Previously, when they thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Gu Shijiu had met with a mishap, they felt terrible for a long time. They thought that they would never be able to get rid of the guilt in their hearts in this lifetime. Now that the two of them had returned safely, they did not want to go through the same thing again. Of course we believe you, Di Baichen replied. Not long after, the group of 4 arrived at Yunlai restaurant. After asking the innkeeper, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others already knew where Wen Xiren and the others' rooms were. They immediately went up. Standing outside the door, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Wanyan Han with a smile. Eldest senior brother, the big surprise we want to give you is inside. Di Baichen also smiled faintly and nodded. He had often heard Wanyan Han mention Wanyan Ling. Now that he could finally see her in the upper world, he must be extremely excited. Chapter 4467. Wanyan Han looked at Bailey Hongzhuang helplessly, but he was also looking forward to it. The two of them said they wanted to give him a surprise when they met. He couldn't figure out what kind of surprise they had prepared for him. Inside the room, Wanyan Ling had been waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang and Wanyan Han to come back. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice outside the door. His eyes lit up. He hadn't heard his elder brother's voice for a long time. This was clearly his elder brother's voice. As Wanyan Han pushed open the door, he saw his younger brother, Wanyan Ling, looking at the figure in front of him. He couldn't help but be stunned. Then, his stunned expression turned into a deep surprise and even ecstasy. Younger brother? Elder brother? Their voices were filled with excitement and joy. They immediately gave each other a hug. Younger brother, you finally came to the upper world. Wanyan Han's eyes flashed with excitement. Back then, the two of them came to Penglai Island to explore. Later, he came to the upper world first, and then he had been waiting for Wanyan Ling to come. However, it had been so long. Although he had been looking forward to it, he didn't know when he would see his younger brother again. He didn't expect to suddenly give him such a big surprise. He even wondered if he was dreaming. Wanyan Ling nodded excitedly. Yes, elder brother. I'm late. After the two brothers calmed down, Wanyan Han looked at Wen Xiren and the others. Seeing this, Di Baichen introduced. They are Mo Yunjue, Wen Xiren and Shangguan Yingying. They are all our good friends and also cultivators of Penglai Palace. So it's junior brother and sister. Wanyan Han cupped his fists. Greetings, elder brother. I've long heard that elder brother is dignified and elegant. Today, I see that you really live up to your reputation. Junior brother and sister are too polite. But you guys, you already have such cultivation at such a young age. You will definitely have great achievements in the future. Wanyan Han's face was full of smiles. He turned to Wanyan Ling and said, Little brother, did you meet by chance? I came with junior brother Mo and the others. When we were in Shuiyun City, we happened to run into junior brother Di and the others. They knew that you were here, so we came together. Following Wanyan Ling's words, Wanyan Han finally understood. I see. Eldest senior brother, are you satisfied with the surprise we prepared? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile. Wanyan Han nodded repeatedly. Satisfied, I'm very satisfied. But why are you going to Shuiyun City? It's a long story. When everyone gathered together, Bailey Hongzhuang told them what had happened that day. After listening to everything, Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao were shocked. I didn't expect the process to be so dangerous. You were so close to losing your lives. So we came back this time to change our identities. We can also take this opportunity to investigate who did it, Di Baichen said in a low voice. Are you planning to stay in Rome, a city like this? Yi Haomiao couldn't help but ask. Di Baichen nodded. Yes. There's no problem with your disguise, but it's not easy to pretend to be another person without being discovered.